Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to your communication skills class again. Today we are back again with our lecture number 19, in which we are going to thoroughly see that how you can improve your business communication skills. So for that, as we've been practicing some of the writing skills techniques in the previous classes as well, in today's lecture we are also going to practice some of the technical writing skills, and to begin with we will first of all discuss letter writing skills. So before we are going to start today's lecture, that's going to be a very interesting lecture today, because we are going to learn as you can how exactly write down a good letter for your audiences. So first of all, before we actually begin with today's lecture, let's quickly recap that what we have done in our previous lecture. The last lecture basically was about writing down a précis. Précis writing, basically we discussed that what exactly is a précis. Précis basically is the combination of all those ideas and all those techniques and all those evaluations and all those examples which have been used in some passage by the original writer. Now it's something like that you are actually trying to transform the thing into the mind of the reader, into the mind of the second reader that you are coming across from the mind of someone who has actually delivered it in the form of a text or in the form of a writing. So you are trying to see, or you are trying to make a summary of, or trying to paraphrase that what is being said by first person for the third person. So whatsoever the original writer has said, you are trying to see that. You would see that thoroughly. You would read his or her article thoroughly in detail to get the gist that what exactly the writer wanted to talk about. Now there are some rules that we have also discussed for précis writing. First of all, we discussed that the précis is supposed to be written in the past tense. Basically, we discussed that précis are written for the non-fictional work. We make and we create précis of the non-fictional work that are available and that you want to give the summary of. So you make the summary of those first-hand work or those non-fictional work for the next person to see that and to deliver them the essence of whatever has been said in the original work. So the original work once being rephrased by you, or this paraphrasing of the original work into your own words. Now you are not going to copy anything from the original work unless that's going to be any quote or anything that cannot be translated or that cannot be transformed into your own language or into your own words. So you would use wholly solely your language, and for using your language we discussed an idea that how you can make help of, or how you can make use of those margins at the or on the sides of any kind of précis that you are making, and in the middle you keep on writing the main points of the précis, and then in the end by looking at that very paper you produce your précis on your own. We also discussed and we also practiced some different kinds of précis, and we also have visited one link, online link, where you have seen one of précis examples, the kind of an outline for précis writing, through which you could actually write down a good précis on your own. Today's lecture is again about writing material and writing communication or written communication, in which we are going to thoroughly discuss the letter writing techniques. To begin with, let's quickly discuss the different basic letter formats. So let's first of all discuss that what exactly is a letter, and how and what kind of the letter formats are available in front of us, and which one we can use. Now if we discuss the term letter, letter basically is an official or a business or a workplace communication. So basically letters are your business communication. You use letters in your business, you use letters in your workplace, and also letters can be your technical documents. Since letters are somewhat different from the text messages that you send to your friends, and letters are somewhat different from any kind of the emails that you are sending to your friends and your colleagues, letter basically carries one particular format. Now there are some elements which are there in the letter that you are supposed to stick to. If you skip any element in the letter, your letter would be incomplete, and that wouldn't be delivered to your audiences in a clear way. So there are three basic letter formats formats that we are going to discuss right now. The first one is block format, the second one is simplified format, and the third one is modified block format. Now three of them, they are similar yet different from one another in their layout. Now this layout has something to do with, you know, providing this thing, or talking about this thing, that how do they look to the audiences, and how do they, you know, look like, and how they actually are being portrayed for the audiences. The first type of the letter is known as block format, in which you can very well see on the slide as well that your all elements on the left hand margin. Now imagine if this is going to be your paper. Now right now we are talking about the block format. If we say that all elements are supposed to be on the left hand margin, it means that your elements are supposed to be on the left hand margin here. If this is going to be your reader's address, and this is going to be your date, this is going to be your address, this is going to be the letter body, and this is going to be the complementary clause, and these are going to be your signatures. So this is how all the elements would occur on the left hand margin like this. Why is it very good format of letter writing? Because you can type it really very quickly for your audiences. Since you don't have to compose anything in the letter, and you don't have to worry about that this thing has to occur on the right hand margin, this thing has to occur on the left hand margin. Since everything has to occur on the left hand margin, so you don't have to worry about this formatting of this letter. However, the central alignment of the paragraphs is really very important, that we would discuss once we are going to go through all of the elements one by one. The second kind of, now that we are done with the block letter format, or the block format of the letter, it means that the block letter basically is a kind of a format where all your elements are, or all your elements occur on the left hand margin, like the way we have discussed here, and we have drawn one picture here. And it is easy because it is typed really very quickly, and you don't have to worry about the formatting of the whole letter. The second category, or the second letter format, is known as simplified format, which is basically kind of, it resembles a block format a lot. Now if this is going to be your paper, now since we say that it kind of looks like, or it resembles a lot the block format, here it's written it's conventional in style, and how it is different from the block format, because it includes the subject line. However, in your block format you don't have the subject line. You don't have the subject line. So how are both of them different? The block format and the simplified format are different because the block format, it doesn't carry the subject line, and your simplified format, it carries the subject line in it. So it's conventional in style, and it includes the subject line. It somewhat resembles the block format. Now if this is going to be your paper, all of your elements would occur on the left hand margin. If this is going to be your address that you are writing, and this is your date that you are writing, and this is going to be your reader's address that you are writing, here you would have your subject line. For the subject line, there is a rule that I would share with you, that your subject has to occur, or is supposed to occur in one line. So this is how, and this is what you are supposed to keep in mind. And rest of all the other things in the simplified format occur on the left hand margin like this, like the way we have discussed the block format. Now the third category is known as modified block format, which has two exceptions as compared to the block format and the simplified format. And those two exceptions are that your date and your closing or your complementary clause, or your closing, actual closing, are on the right hand side. Now if this is going to be your paper on which you are writing a letter, and if you are inserting a date on the top, so this is, if this is going to be your date, that would occur on the right hand margin of your paper. So if you are if you have a paper right in front of you, try to see that which one is the right hand margin. So on the right hand margin, you are supposed to write down the date as well as your closing. So your closing and your date would occur on the right hand margin, and everything else would occur on the left hand margin. No matter that's going to be a subject line, that's going to be the letter body, that's going to be the paragraphs or anything else. So this is how all these three kinds of different letter formats are different yet similar to one another in their style, in their formatting. Block format and simplified format are totally left aligned or left marginalized. However, only the difference between block format and simplified format is that the block format it doesn't carry the subject line. However, simplified format it carries the subject line. Modified block format has got two exceptions in it, because your date and your closing occur on the right hand margin, and all the other elements of this modified block format they occur on the left hand margin. So I hope these basic letter formats are clear to you. Now let's move on to the next slide and see some of the letter components that we are going to discuss one by one. The first letter component is writer's address, where you write the writer's address first of all. Now if this is going to be your letter page, your components, your very first component on this very page would be that you are going to write the writer's address. So if there are 3 or 4 lines for the writer's address, let's say, this is going to be your writer's address, that would be followed by a full stop. So this is your writer's address. Again, the second element is your date. You would insert your date here. For example, if it's today is, let's say, April 19th, 2013, full stop. So this is how you are supposed to write down your date. Then inside address is basically the reader's address to whom you are sending your letter. Then you write down the reader's address maybe in 3 lines or maybe in 4 lines, like this. Then you have your salutation. Now that we are talking about the block format, you send your salutations like, for example, dear, sir or madam. And this is supposed to be followed by a semicolon. Then letter body, that is divided into 3 paragraphs. That is the basic body letter body. First paragraph here, you have your second paragraph here, and the third paragraph here. So this is how you are going to write all your paragraphs on the left hand margin, like this. And then you have your complimentary close, which basically refers to sending your compliments to the reader, like by saying thanking you in anticipation or best regards, let's say. That is to be followed by a comma. So any, like, yours obediently, yours sincerely, yours truly, best wishes, best regards, good regards, and looking forward in anticipation, looking forward to your prompt response. All of these expressions are basically known as your complimentary clauses, where you are actually sending the compliments to the reader. Then you have some space for your signed name, where you do your signatures, and then you have your type names, where you write down your name. Like, my name is Anila Noshin, so I would write my name here like this, and that is to be followed by a full stop. So these are all letter components that we have discussed one by one. Now let's see that how exactly you are supposed to write them down and how exactly you are supposed to write them on the piece of paper. So for that, let's first of all quickly see the letter components in detail. Now, first of all, you have your writer's address. As we have discussed, that on the top of your letter, on every or any kind of a letter that you are writing, you have the writer's address. So the writer's address basically would carry the company's name. Maybe that's going to be, let's say, that's going to be the name of the company of your company from on whose behalf you are sending the letter to the reader. Now let's say if that's going to be M&N's Productions, like this. You are supposed to write down the street number 32, and then write down the address, whatsoever sector it is, like for example G84, and then the city, Islamabad. That is to be followed by a comma. Here the comma was also here. So if you are sending a letter out of the country, you are supposed to write down the name of the city, your city. And if it's going inside the country, you don't have to, or there is no need to write down the name of the country. So city is to be followed by the state, that is the name of your country, that is Pakistan. And then comma, and then again you are supposed to write down the zip code, that is 44000. That is to be followed by a full stop. So this is how you would write your writer's address, by first of all writing down the company's name, then the street, then the address, then the city. And if you are sending your letter out of country, then you are supposed to also mention the state and zip. So this is how you write down the writer's address as. The second element is date. Now the ways that we write date, we keep on writing dates in different ways, which sometimes is a wrong selected idea of writing down the date, or sometimes we write the date in a very wrong way, like the way we write down a date 12/1/2014. Sometimes you also write 12/9/13. So these are the wrong ways. Sometimes you write 13th April 2012, full stop. So this is also, and these kind of practices are the wrong practices. How actually you are supposed to write down the date, you are supposed to first of all write down the month. So if I write that this is April, then I would write down the date. Now remember that if you are writing down the day, day means that you are going to insert the date. Now it would be, or it would occur into two digits like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there are supposed to be digits, 2 digits in any date that you are inserting. So if it's let's say if it's 4th April today, so we would insert it at 04, not the alone 4 in our date. That is to be followed by a comma, and then the year, that is 2013, that is to be followed by a full stop. So this is the right way of writing down the date on your letter, other than if you say that 4th of April like this, 4th April would be a wrong idea. So this is going to be a wrong practice, or this is going to be a wrong idea for writing down any date on your letter. Then comes the inside address, where you are supposed to write down the reader's address, the one who is going to receive the letter and the one who is going to read the letter. So this is going to be your inside address, where you are going to thoroughly see and make sure that you write down the reader's name first of all. So the person whom you are sending this very letter to, you are supposed to write down his name here. Like for example, if his name is Ahmad Mujtaba, and then you are in the second line, you are supposed to write down his title. That is optional. If you know of the title, you can write it. If you don't know it, there is no hard and fast rule that you are supposed to write it. So if you know it, you are supposed to write down, like I know that if he is a director, then you are supposed to write down the company's name, like for example Mayfair Products. The name of the company is Mayfair Products. Company street is street number 419, and address is sector, let's say F16 4, and the company state is, the company city is Islamabad. That is to be followed by your state, that is Pakistan. Now this has to occur in one line. Since we don't have any space, that's why we are writing it in 2 lines. But you are supposed to remember that you are supposed to write down all of it in 1 line. So this is how you write down the inside address or the reader's address. First of all, you write down the reader's name, that is to be followed by the reader's title. Then you write down the name of the company. Then you write down the name of the company's street and address. Then you write down the company's city, state and zip code. So this is how you write down the address of the reader. The 4th letter component is your subject. Now for writing down the subject, you are supposed to make sure that you write down the right subject. Now for example, if this is your subject, You give the heading that this is going to be your subject, that is to be followed by a colon. Then you leave on your computer one tab space like this, and then you write down the subject. Now for writing down the subject, if that's going to be, if your title of the subject is going to be application for the post of programmer. Now if you observe, all the alphabet or all the letters of all the nouns appear in caps, other than all the prepositions which are written in small. So this is one thing that you are supposed to remember while writing down the subject, that you are supposed to write down all the letters or the first letters of every noun that is occurring in, or any kind of verb that is occurring in your subject. You are supposed to write down first letter in caps. So this is how you write down the subject. You are supposed to insert the heading subject, that is to be followed by a semicolon. Then you give one tab space. One tap means one tap on the computer, and then you write down your subject. Now for the subject, you are supposed to remember that your subject should not exceed more than one line. That has to occur in one line. So the shorter it's going to be, the better it is going to be for your audiences to understand what exactly you want to talk about. So the reader would read from the subject that what exactly is the subject of the letter, and then he would proceed further. So you are supposed to write down your subject in one line. Other than that, you are supposed to either underline that, or you are supposed to write that in the bold form. So by doing this, you can make sure that your letter looks good. I hope that you are understanding the letter components as we are discussing them one by one. Now let's move on to the next slide. The next letter component is salutation. Now that you are done with writing down your address, the writer's address, that is to be followed by a date, and then you are supposed to write down the inside address, that is the reader's address, that is to be followed by the subject. Now that you are done with that, the next component or the next letter component that you are supposed to write is salutation. Now salutation basically means that you are sending your greetings to the reader. The reader's last name preceded by a dear and followed by a semicolon. Now you are basically supposed to send your salutations by writing down the last name of the reader. So if you recall, the name of the reader was Ahmad Mushtaba. So if it says that you are supposed to write down the last name of the reader, so how would you write it? That is to be preceded by dear. So you would write down dear Mr. Mujtaba, and that is to be followed by a semicolon. So this is how you write down the name of your, or this is how you send salutations for your reader. So first name can also be used in rare cases where there is kind of familiarity, or where there are no hard and fast rules for writing down the business letters. But for writing down a good business letter, you are supposed to make sure that you are going to take the last name of the reader by sending him the salutation, dear Mr. so and so, the last name, dear Miss so and so, the last name. Then the next step is, or the next letter component is the letter body. That is divided into basically three paragraphs. The first paragraph is your introductory paragraph, the second paragraph is your discussion paragraph, and the third paragraph is your conclusion paragraph. In the introductory paragraph, you try to introduce the reader to the subject, or to kind of bring the reader into the situation. So you are kind of trying to provide the introduction to the reader about the any letter that you are writing. So currently, as we are discussing that we are writing down the letter for a job application for the post of programmer. So in the introduction, you would clearly mention that this letter refers back to your job advertisement in so and so newspaper, and the undersigned is applied, or undersigned wishes to apply for so and so position in your prestigious organization. So it kind of introduces them to what exactly you are, or what exactly is going to be the whole discussion body of the whole letter. Then you have your discussion, where you would thoroughly discuss the whole content of the letter, where you would clearly tell them if that's going to be again the application for the job of programmer. So you would clearly mention in your discussion portion that how you are relevant or how you are expert in the field of that is being advertised by them. Then you are supposed to write down the conclusion. Now for writing down the conclusion, you are supposed to make sure that you write it down in a very smart way, by if again referring back to the title of or the subject of our letter, if that's related to the application for the post of the computer programmer, so you would tell them that if they are going to appoint you, if they are going to give you this opportunity, you are going to not let them down, or you are going to prove yourself. So this is how you write down the introduction, the discussion, and the body of and the conclusion of your whole letter. Then the next thing that you are supposed to write down is the complimentary clause. For writing down the complimentary clause, that can be yours obediently. Now remember that yours, if you are writing it down yours, it doesn't carry a comma here. Don't make this mistake, because this is a very kind of very a childish mistake that people make. This is very primary mistake that should not, at least you should not make this mistake on the business level. Now yours sincerely, and that is to be followed by a comma. So this is how you write down the complimentary clause. Then you write down your sign name. That should be legible. In other words, it means that whatever your name is should be should clearly, your signatures should clearly indicate that this is your name. If your name is, let's say, Muhammad Ali, so you better write it Muhammad Ali, not the way. So nobody would understand what exactly is this, what does exactly it refers to. Your signatures are supposed to be legible. And the last thing, but not the least, you are supposed to type your name completely. That is to be followed by a full stop. So all of these are the letter components that you are supposed to stick and that you are supposed to insert in your letter. The first one is the your writer's address. The second one is date. The third one is inside address. That is the reader's address. The fourth thing that you are supposed to write down is the subject. That is to be followed by the salutations. Then you have your letter body, that is divided into 3 paragraphs that we have discussed just now. Then you have your complimentary clause, then you have your sign name, and then you have your type name. So these are all the letter components. If you are going to stick to, and if you are going to write down all the letter components with care in your letter, I hope for your exams and for your practical life you would be granted and you would be given good marks. Now let's move on to the kinds of the letters. Now that you know that what exactly the letter format looks like and how and what kind of the components does the letter carry, let's move on to the next thing of today's discussion, that is the kinds of letters. There are different kinds of letters that we would come across and that we would discuss today. The first letter kind is known as inquiry letter. The second one is known as the cover or the transmittal letter. The third one is good news letter. The fourth one is bad news letter. The fifth one is complaint letter. The sixth one is adjustment letter, and the sixth one is sales letter. So let's discuss them one by one in detail, that what kind of the letters these are. The first kind of a letter is known as inquiry letter, in which basically, as the word itself indicates, that you are kind of inquiring about something. Now the letter that you are sending to someone or any other company, that the kind of the content the letter would carry in it would refer to kind of inquiring about something or about some person. So this is what exactly you call the letter of inquiry. This basically discusses the letter body. Now letter body, in your letter body, as we said, that you have 3 major portions. The first one is introduction, the second one is discussion, and the third one is conclusion. So in your introduction you would clarify your intent, the intention of writing down the letter. So if you are inquiring about something, you would tell your intention clearly that this letter is with reference to so and so subject, and I would like to inquire about, or my query is so and so. Okay? Then you specify your needs in your discussion. So you talk about the need. First of all, you have intended, or you have mentioned your intention in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, you are going to talk about your needs, that what exactly you need from the person whom you are writing the letter, and conclude precisely the whole discussion that you have discussed in your intent and your needs. So this is how you write down the letter body. So be very careful once you are going to write down any kind of the letter that you have picked up or that you are required to send to any organization. Now, letter of inquiry basically has different kind of types, and there are some examples that we can discuss one by one. Like for example, you are the first example is degree requirements. Like for example, you want to take admission in any university, or you have done something from any university and you want to take out your detailed mark sheet. So you write a letter to university examination department inquiring about that when you can actually receive your detailed mark sheet. Another example could be that you want to take admission in any university and you want to in any field, in any area like BCS, like BBA, and you write down a letter to university's administration or admission section asking them that what exactly is their requirement or what exactly is the degree requirement for holding this so and so course in their university. So this is how this is one, or this can be one kind of letter of inquiry. Sometimes you also write down a letter for finding out the equipment costs. You want to purchase any equipment and you want to know about its costs in different markets. So you send a letter to some organization asking them the cost of their equipment that they are providing. Sometimes you also seek for the performance records from any university that you have studied from, or something like that, or any other kind of a letter that basically, or the title of which can be inquiring about some kind of the information, seeking information, and looking for the information. So these are some kind of the letters of inquiry, and I hope that you must have understood that what letter of inquiry is like. The next kind of a letter is the cover letter, which is really very important for you because you need to understand that how to actually write down a cover letter to be sent to for different purposes. Now cover letter is very important for you because since all of you would be going into the practical lives, and for going into the practical lives you have to have your CV along with your cover letter. Of course you would look up into the newspapers for different kinds of jobs that you are supposed to apply for. And for applying for so and so job, of course you are supposed to write down a letter, and for writing down a letter it is really very important that you know that what exactly you are supposed to write down in that very letter. So for the cover letter, the first example is your cover letter. For the first example for the cover letter is sending your letter along with the cover letter along with your CV for applying for the job. It basically provides you, kind of gives you the information about that what exactly you are looking for. Now cover letter can be your CV, can be attached with your CVs, as well as they can be attached with the company reports or the kind of the surveys or the research surveys that you have conducted. They kind of basically provide the information, or they somewhat also try to provide the key points that what exactly is being written in the report or what is exactly is being written in the CV. So instead of they kind of are friendly gestures for the reader to understand that what exactly is written in the longer conversation that is attached with the cover letter. Now cover letter would always be attached with any CV, with any report that you are supposed to provide to your audiences or the reader. So this is how you write down the cover letter for. So cover letter is basically a cover up, as the word itself indicates, that basically they try to cover up and sum up and provide try to provide the key points of the CV. Of course you would not tell them in your cover letter that I have done this, I have done that. You would in one line or in two lines you would tell the key points, that how your area of experience and how your degree is kind of affiliated with, or it's kind of connected with whatever they are looking for. So this is how exactly the cover letter serves as a friendly friendly gesture for the reader to read quickly and to judge quickly that what you are exactly trying to tell to your reader. The next kind of a letter is a good news letter. The letter, this is a kind of a letter which of course would be providing you a good news. You have been granted admission in this university, that's one good news. You have got a job, that's another good news. You get the approval of something, you get a scholarship, that's another good news. You get a promotion in the office, or you get a promotion as an employee of an office, that's another good news. You get a bonus salary, and you had been awarded something. You become the faculty of the month, you become the employee of the month. So all of them, they would become the good news letter that kind of provide you the good news. So promoting an employee, and job offer, approval of something, all of them, they can be the types of, or they are exactly the types of the good news which are exactly providing you the good news about something. Now whatever kind of a letter that we are writing, remember that we stick to all those letter components that we have just discussed a few minutes back. You are supposed to keep in mind that every kind of a letter, no matter if their subject is going to be different, their a whole component list or the sequence of the components in which it would occur would remain the same. Now moving on to the next slide, that is another kind of a letter that is known as bad news letter, which of course, as the good news letter indicates that it would be providing the good news, the bad news letter indicates that it would be providing the bad news to your audiences. Now a bad news basically is a rejection of a job applicant. Now bad news of course would be telling you about something bad has happened. Now job rejection, or you are not being given this job, this is one bad news. You have been suspended, or you have been terminated, or these are also the examples of the bad news. Rejecting the customer's request, you have been rejected. You had been asking for something and you have requested or ordered for something that cannot be delivered to you, so that's another bad news. You want to take admission in any university and you were not given admission. Instead you get a letter saying that you could not get admission in the university, better luck next time, so that's another bad news. So you better luck next time, try next time to find out and to convert that bad news into a good news letter. The next kind of a letter is a complaint letter, as the word itself indicates that you are kind of sending the complaint about something or about some product or anything that you have purchased. Now that you go to the market, you buy a mobile phone, let's say, or you buy any product from the company, you come home and you see that product. Now instead of or if you have purchased that product in bulk, let's say on the behalf of any company or on the behalf of any organization, now what exactly you do is you don't take all those things back to the office. What exactly you do is to write down a letter that is known as the letter of complaint to the company, saying that the product that you have purchased is not working or not functioning well. So not exactly that, you are also supposed to attach the warranty or the guarantee cards with it, saying that your company claims that you are going to provide the guarantee or the warranty of something, along with the receipts that you have received, those which carry the details of or those carry the amount of or the money involved in transaction of purchasing that very product from that very company. So it mostly your complaint letters, they have enclosures. Those enclosures can carry your guarantee cards, your warranty cards, or sometimes they also can carry the receipts or invoices that clearly tell that you have purchased that product from their organization, so or from their company. So they mostly have enclosures and they have invoices and receipts, and they kind of try to furnish or try to complain about the product not functioning well, or about not giving all the functions, or not solving all the functions properly. The next kind of a letter is known as adjustment letter, which is basically a response to the complaint letter. Now that you have sent a complaint to a company saying that this is a product that you have purchased from their company, now either the company would satisfy your needs, either the company would provide you the guarantee or the warranty. Either their answer can be totally yes, or if they are not going to provide you any guarantee or warranty, their answer would be totally no. Now these adjustment letters are kind of letters letters which are either 100% yes or 100% no. So basically they are reply to or the response to your complaint letter, where the owner, or where the this salesman try to convey the message, or try to satisfy the needs of the customer by replying back, or by writing down the adjustment letter, which can be 100% yes or which can be 100% no. Now moving on to the next letter type, that is the last letter type, that is the sales letter, basically which tries to introduce a new product to your audiences. So this sales product is or this sales letter is really very important for writing down or for introducing your product in the market. Now let's try writing one. Now our exercise is to write down a sales letter. To do so, you are supposed to imagine what product or service you could provide to a potential client. Select one from your area of expertise and academic major. Now write down a letter using letter techniques discussed in the presentation. Now all those components should be there, all those elements should be there that we have discussed in today's lecture. We are supposed to write down a sales letter, and for writing down a sales letter we are supposed to imagine imagine any product or any service that we could provide to our potential client. Now we are supposed to select from our area of expertise or academic major. So let's try it together. Let's open a plain page where we can write down one good sales letter that targets on providing a kind of a detail or for introducing our product that we have imagined into the market. So but to begin with, let's first of all remember that we are going to write down everything on the left hand margin here. So for writing that down, first of all we are supposed to write down the writer's address, that is our own address. So we would begin with the name of our company, that is, or that can be, let's imagine if that's going to be Motor Mania Associates. Then you are supposed to write down the street number, that is Park Lane, comma. Then you are supposed to write down address, Chakshezad. Then you write down the name of the city, Islamabad. Then you write down the name of the country, that is Pakistan. And then you write down the zip code, that is 44000. And that is to be followed by a full stop. You would leave 2-line margins or 2 lines here, and then you would write down the date. For writing down the date, make sure that you write it down in a clear way. Like if it's April 4th, 2013, full stop. Again, you are supposed to leave 2 lines. Here you would write down the inside address, that is going to be the reader's address. For writing it down, you would write down Shiraz Hussain. Then write down the title, his title, manager. Then write down the name of the company. The name of the company can be Shiraz Motors. Now the next thing that you are supposed to write is the street number, street 3, Main Murray Road, that is the address, Main Murray Road, Rawalpindi. That is to be followed by cities, that is to be followed by, your country, and that is to be followed by your zip code. Again, full stop. Then again you are supposed to leave 2 lines, and then you would write down your subject. That is to be followed by a colon. Then you would leave 1 tab space, and then you would write down the subject. Now your subject has to be occur in only 1 line. Now for writing down your subject, remember that you are supposed to write it down clearly. New trackers for automobiles. Now if you see that we have written down the first alphabet or first letter of all the nouns and all the verbs in capital form, either your subject can be underlined or it can be written in bold by you. Now again you are supposed to leave 2 lines and you would send the salutations. Dear Mr. You would take the second name, that is to be followed by full stop, Hussein, again followed by semicolon. Then you would start writing down the body of your letter. Now that you are supposed to write down the sales letter, now you have introduced a new tracker for the automobile, so you would clearly introduce them here. In the introduction portion, you would clearly tell them that what exactly your company is introducing. In the second paragraph, you would clearly discuss about the needs of the customers, and in the third paragraph, you would clearly conclude the whole discussion. The next line would be your complimentary close, where you would write thanking you in anticipation. That is to be followed by a comma. Then you leave 4 line space for the signatures, and then you write down your name. That can be your name can be, let's say, Mudassir Mahmood, and that is to be followed by a full stop, and here you would sign your name. That should be legible, Mudassir Mahmood. So they are kind of visible for your audiences. So this is the whole letter format that you are supposed to write. The same you can try on the Word document, where you can write down each and everything with the 2 line tap spaces, where you can see that how your whole letter would come on 1 page. Good letters are those letters which happen to occur or which happen to finish on only 1 page. So you better try one on your own, and if we get time today, we would try to write down one letter, a good letter on our own on the Word format. So that was the letter format that we have tried on writing down today. That's the sales letter that you are supposed to write down. Now that once you get time, after listening to everything that we are going to discuss today, once you are going to go through everything, make sure that you fill all the body portion, that is the introduction, the main body and the conclusion, on your own, as to see that how you can write on a good sales letter. Now moving on to the next slide, now let's quickly discuss the cover letter. As I said, that this is going to be a very important letter for you, since all of you would be going into your practical lives, and for going into the practical lives, you would of course apply for different kinds of the jobs, and for applying for the jobs, of course you would look up into the newspaper, look up for the different advertisements that you would come across, and once you have selected any job that you want to apply for, of course you are supposed to write down a cover letter that would strongly indicate that you are applying for so and so position in so and so prestigious organization. So cover letters, basically let's discuss that how exactly you are supposed to write down a good cover letter. Cover letters basically are sent with a resume, and your resumes basically carry one letter that is known as cover letter. So never send a resume without your cover letter. Now if you are applying in a company for any kind of the position that you are applying for, make sure that you are going to send one good your CV along with the cover letter. Your cover letter must carry all the details of your CV, since we said that it is going to be kind of mentioning the key points that have been or that are supposed to be mentioned in the letter. So this is what you define, this is what you call a cover letter. There are some purposes of the cover letter that let's thoroughly discuss them one by one. Cover letters basically are used when responding to a specific advertised openings or expressing interest in organization. So you are basically you write down a cover letter when you are responding to a specific advertised openings or any specific advertisements or expressing interest in any organization. Now cover letters can be of 2 types. Either you see an advertisement in the newspaper, or you want to you send your cover letter to some company seeking information if they have got any job vacancies in their organization. So this is what, and this is how cover letters are usually written for. It basically kind of explains why you are sending the resume, how you learned about the company or the position. So it basically, the cover letter kinds of try to explain that why you are sending the resume, and how did you get to find about their position, that is, open in any company or any organization. It convinces the reader to look at your resume. So that kind of, is a persuasion for the reader to look up into the resume for finding out the further details that how competent you are for their company. It calls attention to important attributes of your background. So they kind of, pinpoint all those important attributes of your background, information of your background experience, which you have written down in your cover letter, which kind of, provide the key points that you have the relevant background, you have the relevant area of expertise, so you are, capable and you are competent enough to be hired for this position. Cover letter also shows your personality, your attitude, your enthusiasm, and your communication skills. Now, the way you are writing it, of course, would communicate to the reader your communication skills, that how strongly or how strong your communications skills are to convince them to, hire you and to appoint you for so-and-so position. They would also kind of, tell about your personality. Of course, the way you are writing, your writing techniques would tell about your personality. And of course, the reader would judge whether they are supposed to hire you or not. They would also try to, tell the attitude. Now, cover letter should be written in a very smart way, since it also tries to, tell the attitude of the reader. Now, if you have just written that I have come across your position in so-and-so newspaper and please find attached my CV for further details, that's not going to be a very good idea of writing your details as. You're supposed to provide them the key points that how did you find the job in the newspaper, and how do you think that why are you exactly applying for the job. Now, why are you exactly applying for the job would cover that how are you related to the area of expertise that they are seeking for, and how competent you are to serve to their organization in a good way. You should in your writing skills, you should look really very enthusiastic. You should tell them clearly that if you are being provided this opportunity of working in their organization, you are going to prove yourself. So this is how these are some purposes of the cover letter. Like you are either responding to a specific advertisement or you are seeking a position in any prestigious organization. You try to first of all explain the reason of sending your resume, and you would clearly indicate that how you have found out about the position that they are offering. In your CV, you would again try to convince them that you are the best, and you would also bring their attention to the important attributes. You are kind of trying to persuade them. Your writing style, your communication skills would strongly depict your enthusiasm, your personality, and your attitude for the reader. There are some do's and don'ts of the cover letters that you are supposed to keep in mind and that you are supposed to remember. Don't repeat information found in resume. Now, don't write down clearly those things which are written down in your resume, so things should not be repeated. You are supposed to, sometimes rephrase them, and sometimes you are supposed to write them in a very smart way for the reader to see that what exactly you mean to or what exactly you want to tell them. Your cover letters do sum up important qualities, areas of expertise, and motivation about field or position of interest. So what exactly you're supposed to sum up is the important qualities that are there in your CV that you have written about yourself, your areas of expertise, those areas which in which you are expert, your motivation, how much and why are you so motivated about working in their organization, about your field or the position of the interest. Also about your field, that how enthusiastic and about how motivated you are to become an engineer, to become a programmer, to become so and so, and how enthusiastic you are to work with their organization, since that's a very good organization that you have heard of. Do include information about availability. Also, in your cover letter, do tell them that how soon you are available to join the position that is vacant. Do explain shortcomings or gaps in the work experience in history. So also try to tell them the shortcomings and the gaps in the work experience in the history. Also tell them that although you don't have the very if you don't have very long experience, you just have graduated, so just simply tell them that you just graduated from your university, but you strongly feel, since all of the courses that you have read in your semesters or in your whole course are related or are somewhat related to the areas or the position that you are advertising. So tell them strongly about the history that you have. Do try to keep the cover letter to one page. However, the pages, 2 pages are also acceptable, especially when reflective of extensive work experience. So, as a student right now, what exactly can happen to you is that your CV may end up on 1 page, but sometimes your CV or your cover letter might be elaborated or be elongated to 2 pages also. It also is dependent on your work experience that you are citing in your CV for the convenience of your reader. So these are some of the do's and don'ts of the cover letters that we have just discussed now. Now moving on to the next slide, there are some general structure. There is a general structure of the cover letter that you are supposed to understand, and according to which you are supposed to exactly make your cover letters for. The first one is your opening paragraph. Let's see that how exactly you are supposed to write it. Now state why are you writing. Now this why is really very important. Clearly state that why exactly you are writing this cover letter. How you learned of the organization or position. So you are also going to indicate that how you learned about the organization's position, and through the newspaper, through the web link, or through a friend or anything like that. Also mention that the basic information about yourself in the first paragraph, that what exactly who exactly you are. So clearly state that why are you writing. In that you would clearly write that this is with reference to your job advertisement in so and so newspaper. The undersigned would wish to apply for so and so position. So try also to provide your basic information that I have or I am from so and so area of expertise or so and so stuff. The second paragraph or your main body paragraph should tell why you are interested in the employers or the type of work. So you should clearly tell them that why are you interested in employer or the type of work. So that relates to your area of expertise, and that also relates to your area of interest, that why do you really want to join their organization, as well as that why are you interested in doing so and so work. Demonstrate that you have enough about the employer, you know enough about the employer or position, and relate your background to the employer or position. So before you actually write down your CV, make sure that you know enough about the employers. So in a statement, briefly tell them that you have heard a lot about their prestigious organization. Also tell them the position, or relate your background to the employer or the position. Also try to relate your background to the position that they have advertised in the newspaper. Mention specific qualifications that make you a good fit for the employer's need. Now these specific qualifications, like if you have conducted or if you have done any kind of the courses that are being or which are required by the organization, clearly tell or clearly specify those qualifications which relate to the those company's needs. Refer to the fact that your resume is enclosed. So also refer to the fact that you have done so and so degree in so and so. You have the relevant experience of doing a course in so and so position or programming or technical engineering or so and so stuff, and the further details can be seen or can be referred into, or CV can be referred for the further details. So this is how your main body paragraph look like. The third paragraph is known as your closing paragraph, which basically indicates that you would like opportunity to interview to be interviewed for a position or to talk with employer to learn more about career opportunities. So it should, or it strongly should indicate that you would like an opportunity, and if the organization is going to look into the matter, or if they are going to appoint you, or if they are going to provide you this opportunity, you are not going to let them down. State how you will follow up on the letter, such as calling the company or the employer. So also clearly tell them that how you will follow up, and offer to provide employer with additional information such as certificates and references. So you can clearly tell them in the CV that the references and the certifications or the credentials may be provided on request. The fourth paragraph is a kind of a very brief paragraph. It's only one line. Thank the employer for his or her consideration of your letter and attached resume. So also thank them for their time and their concern and their for reading your letter in detail. It can be the brief fourth paragraph of your whole letter. There are some formatting concerns of the letter that you are also supposed to keep in mind. Other than that, we have discussed in the components of the letter. Be sure that you use standard and acceptable margins for page layout, that is MS Word default. Once you log on to MS Office, make sure that there is from all four sides there is 1 inch margin. Now if this is going to be the page of MS Word, make sure that you have 1 inch margin from here, one from here, one from here, and one from here, so that your display looks good. Use business letter style. First sentences are not indented. Now business letter styles should be uses, that is your simplified format that we have discussed thoroughly, that carries your subject line. Block style is acceptable with text flush with the left margin. So sometimes the block style is also acceptable with the text flush with left margins in detail. There are some different types of the cover letters. The first category is the application letter, which responds to a known job opening. So the first category is the application letter, which actually refers or responds to the known job opening. The second one is the prospecting letter, which inquires about the possible positions. The second one is the prospecting letter, which basically is a kind of a letter, or basically is a kind of thing which is inquiring about the positions in the organization. The third one is the networking letter, which requests information and assistance in your job search. So sometimes you send letters to different companies for asking them or for seeking the information from them for the job assistance. So this is how you write down, or these are some kind of the cover letters that you would come across and that you can come across in your daily life. So it brings us to the end of today's lecture. Today we have seen that how you can bring and how you can write down one good letter on your own. We have discussed some of the letter formats, starting up the block format, simplified format, and the modified block format, which are similar yet different from one another. Block format, which in which everything is left hand aligned, or left hand everything occurs on the left hand margin. However, there is no inclusion of the subject line. The second category is the simplified format. Again, everything is on the left hand margin. However, there is the inclusion of the subject line in your simplified format. The third category is known as the modified block format, which is there are two exceptions in the modified block format of the date and the closing that occur on the right hand margin. Otherwise, all of the other things occur on the left hand margin. Modified block format is that kind of a format that is very common in our business scenario, or sometimes in the government organizations. We also discussed some kind of the letters, like letter of inquiry, which keeps on or which seeks for or which inquires about something. We also talked about the cover letter, that is the letter of transmittal. That is also we also discussed some of the examples that how cover letters can be attached with some different things like resumes, like reports. We also talked about good news letters, which provide the good news of promotion, sometimes sales. We also talked about the bad news letters, which discusses thoroughly the bad news about any not getting any job or about the termination of something. We also discussed some of the complaint letters and adjustment letters. Complaint letters which complains about something, and adjustment letter which are basically written in response to the complaint letter. We also have discussed the sales letter, which basically tries to introduce a new product in the market. We have also tried writing one new sales letter on our own. In the end, we also discussed how to write down a cover letter. We have discussed some do's and don'ts, some of the cover letter types also that you can learn about, and how to write down one good cover letter. And we have also seen that what exactly you are supposed to write down in the paragraphs of cover letter. So it brings us to the end of today's lecture. I hope that you have learned a lot from today's lecture. Since we are in a process of practicing writing skills, and we want to make sure that you learn everything that is very important for making you good business writers. So the first component of the business writing is the technical in the technical writing is the letter writing that we have just discussed today. So I hope that you have learned how to write down one business letter on your own. Maybe maybe you can type it on the computer screen to see that if it happens to occur on one page or two. We will meet again in the next lecture to see that how we can make you good technical writers so that you can run your own businesses and you can become one good business communicator. With that, I wish you a very good day ahead. Take very good care of yourself. Allah Hafiz.